Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game you guys suggested from the 6th round of the US Championship 2022. It is Hans, Moke and Niemann versus Robson, and it very nicely shows how today in 2022 it is not as easy to attack as it would be, for example, in 1922, where all sorts of attacks were just left unpunished. So let's dive straight into it and see what happened here. And it features a very cool line. There are only a few games played in this line in top tier chess. So here Hans has the white pieces and he opens with d4. We have knight to f6 by Robson, c4, e6, and now the immediate bishop to f4. Now this is a very rare, but it has been played by some very strong players like Duda, Rapport, Wojciech Mendonca, and of course Magnus Carlsen. So it is not completely unexplored territory. We have pawn to d5, striking in the center, c captures on d5, knight captures, now attacking the bishop, bishop g3, and pawn to c5, striking against white's center. We have e4, chasing away the knight, and knight to f6. And here we have knight to d2. And already it seems like black is in a position where he can just grab a pawn. But it could be dangerous. For example, if pawn captures, then e5 comes, and after the knight moves, then let's say knight g2 f3. And black will always have a problem of this pawn controlling all of these very important squares. The bishop can come to d3, so the black king will not be very safe on the king side. At some point, black will have to deal with this with a move like f6. So instead, here, knight to c6, just continuing development, and it is now as of move 7 that we have a completely new game. So let's see what Hans prepared here. D captures on c5, bishop captures, and now pawn to e5. So he does win the e5 square, knight to d5, and knight to g to f3. We have castles by Robson, and now pawn to a3, as all of the pieces are eyeing that b4 square. Plus, it prepares pawn to b4. So b6 now preparing to develop the light square bishop, and knight to e4. Makes sense, as you want to get the knight to d squares at some point, and pawn to a5. Now fighting against white's b4 attempt, and here we have rook to c1. You could also capture the bishop, and it is a very nice piece, but captures, and then you're really never getting that b4 move in. So after a5, we have rook to c1, now just preparing to win a pawn here, and knight c to e7. And this is now very exciting stuff. Can the bishop and the pawn be captured? Yes, but Hans's king is still in the middle of the board. So let's say you capture this capture and you capture with the rook. You develop the queen with tempo, attacking the rook, and once the rook moves, you also have to guard the b2 pawn, then rook d8, and black gets all of this development with the white king still on e1. This would be very unsafe. So instead, just bishop to d3, continuing development, and now bishop to a6. Controlling this diagonal, also preparing a trade of light square bishops. So captures, and now Hans finally castles. We have queen to a8. The queen now has full control over this diagonal as the light square bishops have left the board. Also, the rook is now protected. Rook to e1, and now knight to f5, putting pressure on the bishop here. And here Hans just goes knight to h4. He wants to grab the knight and ruin black's pawn structure here. So knight captures on g3, h captures, and now bishop to e7, putting pressure on the knight here, and just queen to h5. And now you can see that Hans has some ideas of attacking the black king. Both of the knights are here, the queen is here. If the pawns start marching up the board, could be very dangerous. But black says, nope, not a problem, just pawn to b5. We have knight to f3 now, shifting the knight over to g5, and rook to c6 now. The rook wasn't really doing all that much on a6, and now you are contesting the white rook on c1 on the only open, or not the only, but on the open c file. So rook c to d1, not agreeing to the trade, plus also you might have some ideas of maybe getting this rook into the attack at some point. But rook to c2. And now you can see that the rook here very nicely controls the second rank, and with the queen controlling this diagonal, it could be a very nice attacking asset. So here pawn to b3 and rook a2. Just going after that pawn. It would be maybe a bit too dangerous to play bishop captures on a3, as then there are all sorts of tricky ideas like rook captures on d5, as you don't want the knight guarding the f6 square. For example, queen captures, and now knight f to g5 could be very, very dangerous. Now, if h6, there's even knight to f6 with check, and now if g captures, then you can play queen captures, and if f captures, then queen captures on g5. You cannot play anything else, but here it would just be basically a forced draw. Queen to h6 check, king g8, queen g5 check, and so on. So, while it can be played, Robson feels that he can achieve more. Bishop, rook to a2, and now knight to d4. And okay, the b5 pawn is hanging, but also Hans made room for this pawn to start marching forward with f4 and f5. We rook captures on a3, Ray grabs the pawn, and now pawn to f4. And okay, we have rook to a2. Here, a most interesting idea for black would be bishop to b4, but with all of these knights and the queen and pawns in front of your king, you just feel a bit uneasy going after material. Point is that now the rook cannot be saved. If you play something like rook e2, then just knight to c3 goes after the rooks, and after knight captures, bishop captures, now you are just very, very happy here. You've cleared the path for the white queen. And even if, for example, knight captures on b5, you can play rook captures on b3, and black is left with a passed a pawn. So this is one way to do it. And if you don't play rook a2, if you play rook f1, then just knight to e3 is very, very unpleasant. One of the rooks will now hang. So bishop b4, most unpleasant here, but we have rook to a2, which means now if those knights move, white will get checkmated on the g2 square. And here, the safe way to play this is just to play knight captures on b5. And you continue playing this, then the knight gets access to d6 and so on. Still, the b3 pawn is weak, and you will have to worry about the passed a pawn, but it would be the safest course of action. But Hans goes for f5, and now the entire position just starts screaming basically, because what is black to do? Can this even be played? What if f6 is played? Is Ray just getting checkmated here? Well, as it turns out, he just plays knight to c3. And it's a very nice move. It attacks the knight, it attacks the rook. Of course, if the knight moves, then queen captures on g2 is just checkmate. So Hans has to decide what to do here. And there's no easy way to meet this knight to c3 idea. So Hans plays pawn to f6. He continues the attack, completely disregards the knight. But now, even though this is a fine attempt, there is a line, only one. And you have to play very, very precisely on each move of the line to survive this and retain a better position. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the only winning idea for black while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on not playing g captures on f6. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop captures on f6. That's the only move. The problem with g captures is that, well, you just play e captures on f6, and now you're just getting destroyed. Queen g5 check, followed by queen g7 checkmate. Or even if you give up the bishop here, just knight captures on f6 with check, king g7, and then knight to f5. With a very nice checkmating idea. If king captures on f6, queen h6 check, king captures on f5, rook to e5 with check, king captures on e5, and queen to f4 checkmate is only one of the lines that checkmate the black king. So congratulations to everyone who spotted bishop captures on f6. It is in fact the only move that gives black the advantage. We have captures with the knight on f6 with check. Now again, you cannot move the king, otherwise you get checkmate. You do have to open up the black king. And now point is, if captures, then this is still checkmate. Hope none of you missed this. So instead, after this knight captures, after g captures on f6, we have knight to f3. This blocks checkmate, but now how is Hans to continue the game? And also how is Ray to continue the game? Problem is, if you play something like f5, which, okay, this could be an issue, but if you play f5, then queen g5 check, and Hans always has a perpetual, not much to worry about here. So you have to play it very, very precisely here after this knight to f3 move, and Ray does. He plays rook captures on d1. And now, again, how do you continue? There's really not all that much to try. E captures on f6 is the only serious attempt, now threatening checkmate, but now king to h8, saying that, okay, if you play something like queen to g5, then rook g8, and there is no checkmate, there is no attack anymore. So Hans grabs back the knight, rook captures on d1, and now rook to g8. And can Hans continue this attack somehow? First, he plays king to h2. He has to defend the g3 pawn. Now comes queen to e4. Now Robson wants to play queen to e2 and threaten checkmate this way, with Hans having no way of actually continuing this. Even if you capture the pawn on f7, there's the very annoying queen captures on f3, and now you just resign. There's really no move you can play here. So after queen to e4, rook to d7, very nicely played, and now we have queen to e2. Robson goes after checkmate, and now again saying, of course, none of this is possible because you have to defend against checkmate. Queen to h3 is played, but now we have the very simple and elegant queen captures on f3, and now, okay, Hans is not down material, as now both players have a queen. He's down a full rook, sorry about that. The problem is after rook captures on f7, which was played in the game, here Robson just played rook captures on g2, and he was in this position on move 35 that Hans, Moke, and Niemann resigned the game, as now there is nothing more to be done here. It seems like he can trade down, and now the material is equal. The problem is queen h5 check. And after queen h3, you just pick up the rook on f7, and that's all there is to it. And if you don't capture the rook, of course, you can play king h1, but then queen to f1 is checkmate. So yeah, just a very, very short game, and it seems like, I mean, look at this, the two rooks, maybe even the possibility of lifting some of those rooks. The knights very nicely plays the pawns here, ready to be pushed to f6, the queen on h5. So it seems like you have everything for the attack to be successful, but you do. It's just almost everything. It's not everything, and there is that one line that allows Ray to take the win. He found it, and that's why he won this very nice game. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any other of your favorites from the US Championship, do use hashtag suggestion and I will go over them. So looking forward to that. I would like to thank Frank Brown, Bjorn Bartel, Ellen Winery, congratulations Dr. Taco, and Francis Air for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions such as this one. And whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.